St Mary's Ward were rebuilt, they'd be able to move back. Well, if they'd have started by doing, say, one section of building, then put the people in, move another section out, move them in there until they'd finished, that would have worked, but they didn't do it that way.
Due to the huge site needed for the flats, only people from the second clearance never had to leave.
In 1966, I came out of my old house and moved into the flats on St Mary's. When we came in, as I said, it wasn't too bad because we moved, a lot of my neighbours moved en bloc, and we thought, oh, this is going to be lovely. And we was the first block Cranchway to be built. We had a lovely view from the front window. We could see over Moor Side. Oh, it was like heaven. It was like a holiday camp. But also we could see on the right that the bulldozers and the cranes was already building things up around us. And we didn't realise how high and how shut in we was going to be eventually. But at the time, we thought it was okay.
Many of the original residents settled elsewhere. They didn't want to come back to flats and a completely changed place. 10% moved back to familiar terraced houses. Fred and Betty Pearson live in Westwood, a mile from St Mary's.
I worked for the man who had this as a plumbing business. So he said, what about buying the business? I said, give a licence. I can't afford it. He says, well, we'll sort something out. And we did sort something out. And he practically gave it me.
Others were not so lucky. Nellie Cartwright said she'd returned to the new St Mary's when it was rebuilt. But she and her husband Billy have settled in Littlemore Estate. It lies under a mile from St Mary's, dominated by Oldham's first high-rise block.
I never knew nothing about the place, not a place I visited, but I took out for Littlemore.
Well, I mean, you can put me and my brood, you can put us on the desert anywhere, really, and I mean, we'd make home out of the desert. Because there's a lot of you see, but one on their own can't, can they?
And the way they did it, they put the old in one block of flat, houses, the young in another, middle-aged in another. They split everything up. They spoiled, to my mind, they spoiled, Oldham Council spoiled a lot of lives. Because we were all taught the younger ones had to look after the middle-aged and the middle-aged looked after the older ones, you see. But it's not like that today. All that atmosphere's gone.
This is Oldham 1984. It's no longer built on king cotton, but the remnants of its past are still in the landscape. Like a lot of Lancashire towns, Oldham's industrial base has never really recovered from the decline of cotton. The unemployment rate is 14%. Ivy Scott worked in the mills for 30 years.
I've never known it as bad because when I was small, when I left school at 14, we had a choice. There was the mill or the engineering for the boys, but at least you had a choice. You could go and earn. You can't do that now because there's nowhere to go. The mills have been pulled down and everything's altered. If you wanted money, you went and worked for it. You worked hard and you got it. But now the kids today, they haven't even got the choice.
Tom Cartledge retired 7 years ago from his post as Borough Architect of Oldham.
My own impression of it was an urban anachronism, ripe for dismantling. That kind of thing sounds all right, but really it didn't take account of people, did it? And when you got to know the people in Oldham, you realise that it wasn't a matter of dismantling some old, worn-out and now unusable machine, and you simply had to do something to recreate a town, a place that was sort of up to date, to bring it into the next century and to make it worthy of the people. There's an unfinished appearance about the place. It looks rather like sort of bits and pieces, which nobody has really sort of grasped hold of and completed in some kind of way.
This is an actual genuine bit, just has not changed. The railings are the same. I used to go to school across there. These railings are exactly the same railings. The market hasn't changed at all. The energy is still here. It's exactly as it was. It's nice to see it. I miss the old town. I don't miss the new town centre. I have nothing to relate to that. Miss this.
It's still there, the market. That's the old part of the Oldham. Mondays, Fridays, Saturdays, you go on the market and you see people you know, your old neighbours, your new neighbours, whoever. In fact, you see more people on the market than you do during the day on the estate. It is a part of the market called Tommyfield, and I don't think it will ever die out. If that dies out, I think that'll be the end of Oldham as such. But the atmosphere is still there. It's a meeting place, and you know, you always see somebody. Oh, I'm going on the market for a walk, and you see somebody, and then say, "Oh, I haven't seen you for years," and there's reunions on the market, you know. And if you get a bit depressed and that, just have a potter on there, and you're bound to see somebody you know of the old life, you know, the old St Mary's. You always see somebody. I hope to God nobody comes along and says, right, this market's a slum, and that's gone.
This is the spot I stayed in overnight during my first visit to Oldham, and from which I made an early morning inspection for the first time of the area behind the church, which we now know as the St Mary's Ward. That was the occasion upon which I might say that the whole horrid kind of shock of the place really struck home, and I was appalled by what I saw. And one felt strongly that something had to be done about this. It was a disgrace, you know, that this kind of thing existed at this time, really, after all these years. We really had to get a move on. The thing was sort of gnawed at one's inside somehow. We've got to get something done about this, and done quickly. And we went about the job. It took, 4 or 5 years to achieve anything in this one place. From my point of view, it was relatively simple. I imagined things, you put them onto paper, you designed them, you built them in your imagination, but then the struggle starts to get somewhere. And that somewhere is a very long way ahead. I think we solved the technical problems quite well. Matters of space and density, the structural problems of foundations, and the putting together the various elements. But in all this, I think we have clearly missed something which people wanted, and that was a kind of intimacy and the ready access to each other as persons and families, which they obviously had in their older environment. Now, that we should have failed to provide this kind of quality, together with the very improved kind of general housing condition, of course, is obviously a matter for regret.
The old houses are sort of another part of the person, like a piece of furniture or clothes or anything. They are part of you. Not quite as much, these new houses aren't as much part of you yet. I suppose they will be in time, but not just now.
And this is a typical St Mary's Ward ginnel. These are the few houses that were left. These ginnels, these alleyways, were great places to play in as a kid. Lots of places to hide. Jumping from lavatory to lavatory was a great game.
They are restricted, the kids, because people are saying, don't make a noise, there's people underneath, there's people above, there's people on the side, don't bang about, don't run up the stairs. Some of them are a nuisance, but they don't have the freedom. There isn't the freedom that we had. You see, if you go out on here now and you're going to, people think you're nosy, but there's no reason why you couldn't walk in your own back garden and see the person next door and have a chat, or your front door, open your front door, there's somebody that sits on your doorstep during the summertime. There's no way can you do that here. Of all the estates in Oldham, I think this is about the best one. A few people have kept it so that they're out and trying to check all the vandalism. It's left down to a few all the time. The people are not the same. Whether it's the environment of where they live or living like this, I don't know. But they're not the same. And these flats have destroyed the social life. They have. They've literally destroyed it.
I think it is very much more important at this point in time that there's 500 families around here are living in good conditions, then they should be left in sordid environmental surroundings and dilapidated buildings of the last century, simply because, well, they like meeting each other on the doorstep.
I bought my house, and it took me 15 years to pay for this house. I paid for it in the July, and in the August I got my note that I'd got to go in the flats, which was very distressing. Paid £550 for my house, which was there, but spent a lot more on it. Got a bathroom in it, and it was perfect. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But apparently they wanted it for the school. As you can see, the school's miles away. There's nothing on here, only grass, which is very upsetting. It really, really... In fact, that was the start of my husband's illness, taking our house off us. Why they should do it, I don't know, because there's just nothing here. Nothing at all, just plain grass. Both sides. It's not needed. The schoolyard's on the other side of the school, the playground. This is absolutely just grass, nothing else, where my house should have been. And I rue the day that I ever went in the flats. But I did what I thought was best at the time. I went in the flats thinking that I could save up and buy another house. But unfortunately, the rent was so high that I just couldn't do it. And by the time I got to it, I was too old. I think they thought they wouldn't get the money back. But it's very distressing to just even stand here and see where my house was, because it was a little palace. It really was. It really does upset me. I really liked it. And as you can see, there was really nice houses. Why couldn't they have made little houses? What made them make flats? It would have been much better in little houses. And surely by what they spent on the flats they could have made little houses. What was wrong with that? Instead of just putting them all in these egg boxes, which is, well, it's not right. People shouldn't have to live like that.
No, I don't like this particular street, if it can be called a street. Well, you couldn't have a street party in this place, could you? It's lost that domestic street feel. And I'm not surprised, really, that people don't like it. Because this was a result of the need to have a good crane run in construction. I think, in a way, one has to admit that this kind of thing is a little bit like warehousing people. You know, you can put dogs or horses or animals into very sanitary and rather lovely conditions, but with human beings there's something else involved, isn't there? But of course, you at the time, you thought you were doing very much the right thing.
Sholver Estate was built in the late 60s in the hills above Oldham. Like St Mary's 20 years ago, it is facing changes. Oldham Council's current policy is to sell off estates which are called problems, and this fate may affect part of Sholver. 2 blocks of flats, barely 15 years old, have already been demolished.
I think that Sholver was, shall I say, a 90% error. That again, on the part of the council, was an attempt to find land within the borough boundary to avoid the overspill problem. They earmarked 160 acres of land in that high moorland lying between the 900 and 1100 foot contours. And when you think that exposed moorland area gets the full force of bad weather, I think it was a great mistake. We were compelled to build on it simply because the council decided that it was the place upon which so many of the people living in the areas of clearance were to be rehoused. I don't think that houses in such quantity or number should have been put up there in that situation anyway. But again, that was a political decision that certain lands must be used, and we had to use them.
We got top Sholver and bottom Sholver, which is pretty sad really, because you've had 2 blocks of flats which have been taken down and split the estate in 2, which has put a sort of class system on it. This top part were built first, so they got people in it who didn't sort of have this fear of living up here, because they didn't know the place. It was a new estate, that was it. They built their houses up and they made them nice and they sort of settled down into them. There's like 2 separate communities through it being split in half. You get bottom Sholver, which have got very bad types of housing. I mean, they're ridiculous. The way the houses are built is stupid. I mean, I've got a nice suite and everything else, but it just wouldn't look right in one of those houses. And no matter how hard some of them try down there to get a nice house together, they could spend a fortune on the furniture and still not have a nice house, simply because of the house itself. I don't think it's neglected by the people living there so much as by the council, you know, the repair system. And the fact that the houses aren't built like these on top shoulder means they deteriorate quicker than what these do.
I was brought up in a kind of post-war housing estate. I don't think they were built for people like me because people like me weren't around when they were building them. You know, we were very young, so how could they know what we'd want, you know, to live in? I think when they made the decisions, it was in the 60s, there was a lot of money about, and they just assumed that the same amount of money would still be around in the 80s. That's not the case. You know, they were wrong, and I think they'll be wrong again if they try to make, you know, decisions now. They'll be wrong in 20 years' time.
Saw John Wayne bite the dust a lot of times in here. It used to be a cinema called the Gaumont. And then it closed. And the next time I came, I was a teenager, 15 or 16, and it had become a top-ranked leisure centre called the Astoria. Downstairs was a dance hall. Beatles appeared there. And up here was a bowling alley with about a dozen lanes.
Mods don't seem to start anything. Probably because I'm a pseudo-mod, I've said this, but they don't seem to want trouble. It's the rockers who give it them.
Well, for a start, it was one of the very first meeting places of my generation that attracted people, the kids, from all the areas of Oldham. Before, my circle of friends had been centred on the area that I lived in, but now I was meeting people from all around 20, 30 miles away. Kids came here. You saw me in the road, without a dream in my heart, without a dream in my heart. Bum 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 dang 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 ding dong ding blue. You did. It's pretty depressing, isn't it? It really is depressing. The whole thing is geared around packing people in, pouring ale down their throats, flashing lights in their eyes and playing loud music. It is depressing. I'm pretty sure a lot of the kids who come here don't feel that. And I'm sure when the music's playing they've had a few drinks and they're dancing. It really is good, somehow. But I suspect that people behind it are laughing all the time. It wasn't like this in my day.
If this is a better life, then I'd rather have the old one. I really would, and I'd go back tomorrow. This is not utopia as it was supposed to be. The rents are too high that we can't even afford to live in them now. So what good is it? What have they done? I'd like somebody to tell me what benefits I've got personally out of them pulling my house down. Because I'm back where I started from. I had nothing at the beginning. I got something and they took it off me. Because the damn cheats tell me I lived in a slum, and then I'm back again here now, still on the breadline and still struggling.
Let's be modern, let's be nice.